Welcome to Self-Discovery Media Network, formerly known as Self-Discovery Radio. Each week we bring you illuminating shows from those making a difference in the lives of others. They've taken their own journey. They're here to share their skills, their wisdom to help you on yours. You can see more about us at selfdiscoverymedia.com, and please listen to our wonderful collection of shows. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to selfdiscoverymedia.com. I am Sara, owner, host here of this wonderful network where I get to interview the most extraordinary people doing wonderful work from around the world. And today, under our Self-Discovery Medium show, we have a beautiful, gifted woman, Terry Anderson, who is a remote healer. She is a medical intuitive controlled remote viewer, healer, psychic, and medium. How did she come about this? Was it something she always had? Well, yes, but what ignited it? Well, a very, very near sudden death experienced by the hands of two armed men, viciously beaten and threatened to murder her, prompting an out-of-body experience in another realm with a future view, a future life review. We always look to what that redirect is going to be, and we never know what it's going to be. But this opened up that third eye, and it opened up her gift, and it opened up into what her beautiful, meaningful purpose is. And today we're going to share that meaningful purpose with you. We are going to dive right into what is remote healing. How can you heal people through just online, through thinking of someone, because it's all energy, it's all signature, it's all channeling. We don't have to be in front of people. She is a fellow Canadian, but it doesn't matter. She can serve you anywhere in the world. And how can we heal people remotely? How can she go in and know what the problem is and know how to solve it? Well, that's what we're here to ask her today, and find out how we can use this beautiful gift of hers that she discovered through a trauma. But it was the most beautiful gift that's given to her as a meaningful purpose in life. So one never knows what's going to come out of things. It's that willingness to accept when it does. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. It's lovely to be here.
And great to have you here. We don't know what is going to be our redirect, do we? I kind of say some people get the kiss on the brow, some people get a nudge, some people get the cosmic 2x4, and in your case, it definitely, was a hard hit, but yes, it did wake you up into that gift. Can you share some of that experience for us?
Yes, the night that I was assaulted by armed robbers, I went to work for one night for a lady who was sick in a pub, and my husband was at home looking after our two young daughters. And as the night progressed, I got more and more agitated in my gut, and I kept phoning him saying, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. And I didn't know what it was, and he didn't know what it was. And at the end of the night, I was the only one working, so I was in charge of locking all the doors and windows and setting the alarm, and I was panicked because I thought I could hear noises outside. So I set the alarm and had my car keys in my hand and bolted out the back door. And as I was slamming it closed behind me, that's when these two armed men rushed me and beat me up very badly, put a sawed-off shotgun against my head and a crowbar against my face, and they put their hand over my mouth and wouldn't let me talk. And they told me to open the door because I had keys in my hand. So when they did let me talk, I told them that the keys were from my car. I couldn't let them in the building. I didn't have the keys. So they believed me. And in that instant, though, during that assault, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die right here. I'll never see my kids again. And then I thought I could see the bullets coming out. It was that close for me, and I really felt that I would die right there. So after they let me go, I went to a friend of the owner who phoned the police, and I went to the police station, and I picked out two men that fit the description. And then I went home and told my husband what happened and said, I'm moving. You can stay if you want with the kids, but I'm leaving. I was terrified because these men saw who I was. They saw the car I drove, and I thought if they get caught, that's, they're looking at 10 years for attempted armed robbery and assault. And so we moved very quickly. And and I realized about 11 months later that I had amnesia, because I was coming out of amnesia and I realized I couldn't read.
Mm.
And I didn't know who was in the house. I didn't know the man. I didn't know the kids. My sister had come to live with us to help. And so I went into hospital for 3 months the first time, and started getting a lot of different kinds of therapies and treatments, and realized I had quite a significant brain injury. So it was during this recovery process that I also realized I had these profound abilities and memories of being in another realm with these other beings, who were giving me a life review and a future life review. And um, and I remember having my third eye opened by a being in white. That's all I can describe.
Mm-hmm.
And that my I have a lot of memory from being in that realm, classes um, and what could be classified as craft, being on board craft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have another description for it yet. And being shown all these people I would meet and things that would happen in the future. And then I remember coming back into a body, and it was so profound. It was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing back here, and whose body is this?
Mm.
And I don't even fit this body. And what is this to be female? What does that mean? What is male? um, and I didn't feel like I was from here at all. I felt like I was from another star system.
Yes.
And I had all of these abilities and all this future memory, and it feels like whoever I was died and somebody else came in and took over with a new life and a new plan. So it felt like I had to finish up the old life, and my marriage shattered because I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And I had to relearn everything all over again. So once
Did you know your children?
No, I didn't even know what a car was. I mean,
Oh, really?
yeah, I couldn't feel the ground under my feet. I had a lot of injuries, and it took a whole army of people to put me back together again. So it was a very long, very slow recovery, and I lost everything. I lost my family, my marriage, my home, my ability to work. But I realized I had these amazing abilities, so I went back to my doctor and told my doctor what happened. He said, oh, Terry, you've had a near-death experience. So he referred me to IONS, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and I started researching with them and talking to different authors and people who helped run the organization. And then I found one of my favorite scientists at the time was going to be speaking at a conference in the States to do with remote viewing. And so I went there. And sure enough, I was with my peers. I realized they could do what I was doing.
Yes.
You know, see remotely, see things ahead of time, look into people's lives and bodies or whatever. So I decided to get some training. And just back up a little bit, though. The reason that I got the training was not only to learn how to apply my abilities, but to honor my nephew, who I had seen in a dream 2 weeks before a car accident. And this was a very bad dream about my brother and his son, about a car accident. And I didn't phone to warn him. I told my sister about the dream because I thought it was a dream. And so then 2 weeks later, I had another dream. I was on a bed, and this bed was moving into a hole in the wall, and there was a cloudy brain and a sexual feeling to this child. And I woke up and I thought, well, this is not a dream. This is a visit with a child, but what does it mean, and who's the child? And so I was telling somebody at work that afternoon about this spiritual experience, and my sister phoned me at work and said, our nephew had been hit by a car that night, and he was in the Vancouver Children's Hospital in a coma. They did an MRI scan and it showed a cloudy brain. And so we all agreed to meet in Vancouver. And my brother pulled me aside and told me what happened, and that some months earlier, somebody had molested his son. And then he took me into the room where there's a little 8-year-old boy in a coma. And it was the first time I had ever met him. And I just stood in prayer, and I thought, well, how could I see this boy twice before I ever met him? How could my consciousness go through the MRI scan with him?
Right.
Like, how does that work? And I carried guilt for a long time because I thought, if I had phoned my brother, could I have prevented it?
No.
So with the teacher, Lynn Buchanan, that was one of my first questions to him was, if we see the future, can we do anything about it? And he said, absolutely. So he took me on a time experiment where I was viewing a target going forward in time and backward in time. And it's as if you're right there, feeling and seeing everything. And so I have learned kind of how to manipulate time when viewing, when doing a reading or doing a session for somebody. And so my nephew is still profoundly brain injured. And he's now, I think he's 19 years old. And he had a full-blown near-death experience. He's very psychic, but he's very injured and he needs a lot of help. So I do this work to honor him and whatever it was that brought us together, to allow me to see those events before they happened. Because in a way, he's gone on to help so many people through me. So it's kind of an interesting relationship. And
we've got to remember that those are all agreed on before we come here. You know,
wow.
we sign a soul contract before we come here of what we're here to do, what our journey is, and what will happen to us. And, you know, I was talking to someone about gifted children, you know, and how people look at children want to label them all autism. And instead, actually, there are indigo children, there are crystal children. They're here to teach us. And, you know, the thing is, when we hear such disasters, sometimes we can prevent something, but sometimes it's in that contract. No, this is part of their journey. What happened to you, although there was an enormous amount of personal loss, the gain that you were giving and how many people it helps is the reason why you came here. This was your contract. And, you know, people go, but why would we sign up a contract not to remember our husband or our children, right? But those are the kind of things that are on a human level we still don't understand. But on a cosmic level, it all makes sense. You're still connected to your children, whether you're with them or not, that bond will always be there. But it's very hard just for the regular folk to actually understand all of this, isn't it? Because the human side of us does not get it. Because we're linear, we want to know things in absolutes, but our cosmic side of us is something that we understand what we need to know when we need to know it. And then that's where the clarity is. And we don't kind of dissect what we're given. We accept what we're given and understand it in that moment. And so sometimes it's not for us to question, which I think is the hardest thing for the human side. To not question. Yeah, but why? But why?
That was me. Everybody didn't like me in school because I was always asking why.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
And sometimes there simply isn't an answer. You know, I fully relate to the fact that I suppose my birth was a near-death experience. I shouldn't have been born. And had a few other traumas since then. But I've always been the cosmic being trying to be a human being and trying to work out what it's like to live, you know, as a human being and not getting the way humans treat each other. You know, this whole fear thing, this anxiety, this depression, this frustration that we live in, where with the cosmos, there's such a beautiful divine flow of knowledge that we don't feel that. And it took me a really long time to become one. And I had to let that other person die for me to merge and to be my true cosmic being in the human self. And it was a long journey to get there. So I understand the death of who you were. A lot of people have talked about that, not always to the extreme like you have, where you don't remember your children or your husband or your past life. Yeah. For some people, it's the death of who they were in the way they interacted with life and who they were being in that life, their falsehood, and they stepped into their truth. Have you found that with other people that you've come across like this, that it's not an absolute, but it's just a death of the way they were and an embracement of who they are now?
with some people, because I helped run an organization for near-death experiencers for about 7 years. So I got to hear a lot of stories from different people. And I didn't meet anyone else that had the kind of
Extreme.
experience.
Yeah.
Because I remember being on a mountain. It felt like a holy mountain outside of time and space with these three beings. And I was trading or exchanging something with them and their information. And it felt like a soul exchange.
Yeah.
And then
But what was really strange, though, is the time from when you were attacked to the time when everything started happening for you. You know, like a delayed time before the memory started losing. Did they have a medical reason for that?
Well, I had brain injury. I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I had severe spinal injuries. And this amnesia for, I think, 10 months. And then I started coming in and out of amnesia until I was here. And it was in that time that it felt like I was in another realm.
Yes.
And I was, you know, there is no time. There is no space there.
No.
And there's all this learning and this tremendous information that exuded from these entities into me. And it was kind of like telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's or cosmic consciousness.
Yes.
I'm really not sure. But when I came back, it felt like I was truly not from this earth. I was from somewhere else.
Yes.
And it felt almost like a reincarnation at the age of 30.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see your children? Have they accepted this new you?
Well, I see one of them. The other one doesn't accept what's happened to me.
Right.
And it was, you know, really traumatic for all of us.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I mean, I don't think people realize actually that for some who do, you know, here to do the extreme work and that cosmic 2x4, that redirection sometimes for some people is absolutely extreme and costs them a great deal. And they don't realize what they're kind of humanly giving up. Yes, cosmically gaining, but humanly giving up. And it can be, you know, very painful. But at the same time, everything's down to choice. You have a relationship with one. The other one cannot accept the cosmic side of you. Wants the old mum back. Well, whether you had gone to the cosmic realm or not, you still never would have been the old mum, not after that kind of damage. So, you know, that perhaps is her journey in life, to realize things do not stay the same, things do change, and it's embracing the now and the who in the now that's important.
Wow. I agree. I think that's about as clear as you can be with that.
So now we're handed this gift of remote viewing and remote healing. And again, you know, I always think that when we step into that meaningful purpose, we step into what our instrument is. Not everybody does the same thing. This was your gift that was given you to do. And this is what you're here to perfect and to learn and bring to the orchestra of life as your instrument. And quite fascinating that it, you know, should be this, because you're not a medical person, yet you're able to help people physically. And of course, again, that is something that blows the human mind. How do you know what to do? But that's where that channeling comes in, isn't it? That's where that knowingness is. You don't need to know how, you just need to open up to do.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's exactly true. And I've had lots of training in a variety of places in the world with specialists that were divine.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, I used to read cards and tea leaves and all these other props that, you know, a lot of readers do. And then I was trained out of it, how to just get the information divinely. Yes. And you just put your ego aside and you just open up, as you say. And I deliver everything that I get, whether it's so-called good or so-called bad. I don't look at anything as good or bad.
It's just knowledge. And with knowledge is where you make the choice of what it applies to. And you know, I don't think people actually understand what knowingness is. You know, it's when the soul really receives the divine information. It resonates with the heart in truth. It goes to the spirit into action, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And you don't need to verify, validate, justify. It just is, isn't it? That's the knowledge that you need to partake with, that you need to deliver in that moment. And that's all you need to do. You know, it's once they've received that knowledge, they can ask the questions. But for you, that's the purity of it, isn't it?
It is. And when I came back to a body from that realm where you travel at the speed of thought,
Yes.
it's effortless. And then you
Yes.
come into a body, and this body has gravity, and it's very heavy. And you have to move it.
I know. Why? I know.
And then I can sense everything as a frequency. So I read the frequency domain. And I get the spiritual sign language from departed souls that, you know, it's an exact frequency language.
Yes.
And it's amazing. I have to say, the kind of work I do is, I'm always amazed at the information that I get and how accurate it is.
I mean, when you talk about frequency, which we do a lot here in Self-Discovery Media, many shows on it, is that we are all energy. You know, everything around us is energy. Everything has an energy code. Everything within us is energy. Absolutely everything. And with the wrong energy, it changes our structure, miraculous structure of our body, water in our body, which is over 70%, that feeds our organs, feeds our mind. And if that is in negativity or dire strait, then obviously everything else is going to break down. When you feed it on a higher frequency of love, that's when things start to work well and work cohesively and together. So frequency is the energy that we need in order to be every living particle in this universe and within us, because we're made up of the universe. Do you find it hard that people to accept that we are beings that are energy that run on this frequency?
I do. I think it's difficult for people unless they've had an enlightenment experience, unless they've had this transformation of consciousness. And there's a Rupert Sheldrake, and I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he talks about the morphogenic field. And it's like, it's this field of energy that I know how to read. I know how to intuit and scan. That's how I can scan someone's body on the other side of the world.
Yes.
In fact, I did a reading today for a man in Ireland, and right away I said, "Oh, what's happened to your right eye?" He said he had surgery there, and I could feel the surgery. And, you know, he's continents away.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So,
there is no distance with frequent energy, is there? There is, you know,
you connect like this, and I move into someone's body as if I'm them, and if I can see through their eyes and feel through their body. I feel everything in their body.
So are you identifying what the problem is for them?
Yes.
Can you heal the problem, or you're just identifying it?
Well, I did a reading for a young mother who has small young children, and she's married, and she's riddled with cancer, and she's undergoing treatment. And so I did quite a long reading with her, and I sent her some energy healing. And she said, as we were on Skype, she said she could feel energy coming into her body. And then she contacted me, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, and said that her cancer markers are way down.
Yes.
So, you know, I hope to be able to hear from her again. And I did send her links to 2 specialists who treat cancer without chemotherapy.
Yes, because chemotherapy destroys every cell in your body, the good ones and the bad ones, and depletes the body to such a point, you know, that, you know, the immune system breaks down. You know, recently I've known of 2 people being given a diagnosis of cancer, and you haven't got long to live, and the next thing you know, they're dead within a couple of weeks. You know, they've died by, you know, being told they're going to die, not because the disease killed them. Right.
And when they take on that role, that label, that claim from somebody else, like, that is wrong.
Yes.
And even working with in psychiatry, like I've studied a lot of psychiatry and neuropsychiatry, etc. The psychiatrist will say he doesn't label anybody. He doesn't want to do that, because we're all so unique in how we experience and view the world, and we all have such unique experiences. So. And part of becoming an authentic person is not wearing those labels.
Right. You are just, you'll just be, just I am, right? Yeah.
So I think the mental health field is going to change because of people like me. and people like Christine and Stanislav Grof, who wrote a book on spiritual emergence, and they're both psychiatrists, and they talk about these spiritual awakenings that people have when the Kundalini is rising, and when these spiritual activations happen through near-death experiences or other meditations, etc. And so that is helping to set a new stage and a new platform for helping the mental health field evolve to really serve people at a more human and spiritual level, other than just labeling them and drugging them.
Yes. Well, they've only been addressing the mind. They haven't been addressing anything else. They've purely been stuck on the mind. And although the mind dictates what's happening to the body, if you're just treating the mind as a problem, then it passes that problem right through the body. So I had a psychotherapist on, and she's changed her practice to sacred therapy.
Oh, wonderful.
Right? Because it is not about just being stuck in the mind, tell me about your mother, it was about addressing the soul, the heart, the spirit, if the body's in trouble, the body's in trouble because everything else is out of balance, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, something needs to be healed. And I understand, I've been able to heal.
Yes.
Which was very difficult. And I think I've had some major assaults in my life, and I realized that in order to heal myself, I had to forgive.
Yes.
And so when I think in my mind's eye about forgiving someone who's hurt me, I open my hands and I go to them in my mind with understanding, compassion, and forgiveness. And that allows me to heal, and it disconnects this negative, if you want to call it, energy thread between us.
The hold they have on you.
Yeah, and it can lead to their healing as well.
Yes. Yes, there was a wonderful gentleman I had on, and there was a movie called Let It Go. And he was a father in the car with his pregnant wife and 2 children, and a 17-year-old drunk driver drove right into them, killing his wife, baby, 2 kids, injuring him. But he was a pastor of a church. And he said, how can I not find forgiveness? Because I would be a hypocrite. And so he searched in his heart to find forgiveness and ended up helping this 17-year-old turn his life around and be more productive. Now, I'm a mother of 3. I would hope I would have the courage to do that. And it might be a journey to get there. But, to ask someone to forgive who's taken 3 children and a wife away from you, is really hard. But what an example of love and of trust and of stepping into that power. But yes, from a human aspect, we want revenge, don't we? We don't want to forgive.
Yeah, we do. And I remember phoning the police department and just screaming at them.
Yes.
During my recovery, and they just hang up. Oh, it's Terry again.
But yeah, you've got to go through the emotions, though, right? You've got to go through the journey.
You do, and it's very, very difficult. Loss upon loss upon loss upon loss.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of people, that come to me because they've had losses, or they're dealing with illness or suicide, or, really grave situations.
And you get it.
I understand. I feel it. I can resonate with it, and I can provide, additional resources to help them on an ongoing basis too.
Yes. Because, stepping into self-love, stepping into that meaningful purpose, there's a journey to get there. And that is looking at all the things that have gone wrong in your life, looking at all the pain that you've been through, being willing to let it go, being willing to take all that love that you didn't get and apply it to yourself, where a lot of the time people feel unworthy. Right? Or did I ask for that beating? Did I ask for that rape? Did I ask for that abuse? Was it something I did? Did I fail? And when people go through all of that and get to the other side and say, on some level we did, because that's all we knew to ask for. But when we raise those frequency and raise that vibration, we know better, and we know how to treat ourselves better, so other people around us know how to treat us better. But it is a step by step, isn't it?
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a lot of dogma that tell people, oh, well, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Well, I don't agree with that, because I've lost it, a few
Yes.
times. I've dropped my basket.
Yes.
And also some people will say, well, you must have agreed to this or wanted this or something, but that's kind of victimizing the victim.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
re-victimizing the victim. And I don't believe that a child asks to be abused.
No.
Before they come to this life.
Right.
And so I think that in our healing journey, we can learn and understand this self-love with healing. But that is through this forgiveness. I don't believe that you can heal without forgiving the offending partner.
I agree with you. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have to still have relationship with that person or persons, but we do have to find that this is an inner job, an inside job.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So applying that self-love is one of the key elements of healing.
Yeah. And the thing is that a child will not ask for that abuse, but if you're in an abusive relationship, the way we're continuing to ask for it is because we're not standing up to say no, or we're not walking away. And that's a lot of the time is because the self-esteem and the whole self-value is being knocked down. And that journey to self-love is when you can stand up and say no more. And, the ownership is, I would take it in my marriage, the ownership is, I got verbally kicked, but I handed him the boots because I didn't think enough of myself. And as I thought more of myself, less of the boot kicking, because I caught those boots in midair, and less of, actually he didn't know how to treat me in the other light. So therefore, obviously the marriage disintegrated, right? Because he couldn't match the vibration that I rose up to. And like your husband, you didn't know him. He wasn't willing to go through that journey to discover who you are now. And it disintegrated because that's where he was. And so sometimes that's the lesson in life, isn't it? Is that, through my marriage, I've got 3 gorgeous children, and I had the discovery of self because I had to fight for me and raise my vibration to discover who I was. Forgive him and forgive me for allowing it to happen so I can move forward. And as you say, forgiveness is the core, isn't it, to healing?
It is. It really is, yeah. And then both people are set free,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And then growth can happen.
And health can happen.
As I'm talking to you, I'm just being bombarded by spirit. So is your mother departed?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, 3 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. She's just zapping my body like crazy.
Yeah,
so I guess she's here.
Well, it's good to know, because I thought she'd gone on, because I haven't felt her for a while. She passed over 3 years ago. She made it to 95, which is amazing. But she had a very unhappy life, because she was always waiting for people to love her in her light, but she was a bit sacrificial in her persona, and that is something I learned that I had to unlearn, right? And so, maybe she's in that conversation right now going, yes, I wish I had done that too.
Yeah, she's been buzzing me as you're talking, so she's like just confirming what you're saying. Isn't that interesting?
Because I married my father. I mean, I married an Oriental guy in a different religion, a different country, different space and time, but I ended up marrying my father. What my husband did to me, my father did to my mother, and it was browbeating and demeaning, narcissism. And I thought I was moving far as way as I could to that. But because I hadn't moved, my energy hadn't moved, I got the same. And that's the importance of raising our vibration and our frequency, isn't it?
And talking about how we heal and evolve and change so that we don't repeat these patterns.
Yes. Yes. We've got to understand the brain is the hard drive. That's what makes everything go. It's the wiring. But the mind is where the programming is. And the mind is this lifetime. It's a DNA lifetime, and it's many, many past lifetimes. And sometimes we just have to look at what is the now, what is, you know, the nature, the nurture, and what is the past, and really understand where this is coming from. Because I have met in my own practice so many people with so many past lifetimes that I just don't know this part of me. No, because this part of you has been traveling through every lifetime and either needing to be released or accepted, one or the other. But we as humans, we think so linearly and so singularly, but we're so multi-dimensional, aren't we?
Aren't we? I did want to speak to the multi-dimensional aspect of ourselves because I was sitting at my dining room table one day and a portal opened up about 3 feet away from me. Right interdimensional portal opened. And with a specific color and specific numbers. And this information transmitted to me into my body, and I was shaking from a download. And that night, when I went to bed, I rose up out of my body, and I was in the corner of the ceiling, and I was looking down on my body. And then I flew right through the closed plate glass window, and I rode on a light beam, on a curved light beam into the future. And I saw somebody removing 3 fingers, and I was so shocked. I came back to my body, and I sat up to meet this ball, this like plasma sphere, and it was sparkly, you know, and it landed on my chest, and I threw my nightgown off, and it dissipated into me, and I was so stunned. I thought, is that how we travel in a sphere? You know, in this bioplasmic sphere, some kind of anyway. So I phoned 2 people and told them. One was a dentist, one was a lawyer. And this was like at 3 in the morning. And then 2 weeks later, I was on a beach with the dentist, and he introduced me to his brother, who's a surgeon, who told us that he had to amputate 3 fingers from a patient. And so the dentist that I'd phoned 2 weeks earlier about this so-called dream looked at me, and he backed up from me.
Mm-hmm. You're suddenly scary.
I thought, how can we time travel? How does this time manipulation work? So, you know, I'm quite fascinated.
Well, you know, there's the question of there is no time. You know, that there's, you know, some say that time folds on each other and you're just going through it like a black hole, you know, and of course we know in the universe, you know, I'm a reader myself, we can't read time. You know, we can see events getting closer by things that are happening, but time is very hard to read because there is no time in the universe. The universe is just beautiful, everything and nothing, and peace and just plateau. Oh, I love going there. You know, it's my rejuvenation. But time is something that's really hard. I am a multi-dimensional traveler. I don't do it through orbits. Literally, the body isn't there. Off my spirit goes, and I have lived in different parallel worlds, and very often it's, you know, I remember something and then somehow kind of my brain goes, but hey, that wasn't in this world. That was in another world. And so a lot of my worlds bleed together, but I just think that's fine. I'm living in multidimensionals. I'm multiple energies. You know, the body is only this vessel in this planet, but in other entities, my spirit is all over the place.
I can totally agree with that. I remember being on craft and being shown anti-gravity technology and really complex, really advanced computer chip design. That was before I'd even seen a computer chip, and there's nothing like that yet here.
Yes.
And huge craft, like bigger than anything I've ever seen in my life before.
Right.
And like a fleet of them. So, you know, and being healed by color and light and frequencies. Really amazing technologies in those other realms.
Yes. And, you know, you address color. Color isn't just beauty. And you know, obviously I'm a blue child. Color isn't just, you know, something that's pretty and that raises the psyche. It's that each color has its own frequency and own vibration, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does, yes. Yeah. And so my sensitivities now are just so acute.
Yes.
You know, compared to how I was before. There's no comparison. So I do psychic exams. psychic x-rays, psychic breast exams, you name it, I can pretty much do it.
No, I
And
mean,
so
can you, I mean, when you're doing this remote healing, it's like, are you just literally, you obviously permission to do because you can't do anything without others' free will. But is it just something you just go in and let them show you what it is, or are you going in specifically looking for something?
I scan the body. I have a diagram of the front and back and side image of either a male or female body. And so I start every reading with a medical intuitive body scan because I have saved people's lives doing that. Because I see and feel and sense early stage cancer and other kinds of disorders. So I just when we do this meditation together, then help them come out of their head and go into their heart beating. And then I can connect to their heart. I can tell if they have high blood pressure, low blood pressure, because I feel it in my body. Whether their heart skips a beat or if they've had heart surgery or whatever it is. So, and I mark everything on these diagrams, absolutely everything. I don't edit anything out because sometimes they even forget.
Yes.
And then I scan the information to them after, and they often contact me again and say, you were right, I remember, whatever it was. But I feel everything that's happening. I get past, present, and future. And that's why I don't edit anything out.
Yeah.
In
because
fact,
it's all significant, isn't it?
In fact, I've learned not to edit anything out because I'd rather be wrong than not say it. And in fact, I was a patient of a specialist, a rheumatoid arthritis specialist. And last time I saw him, I said, "Are you feeling okay?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Are you sure?" I felt something was really, really wrong with him. And he said, "Yeah." He talked about his diet and exercise and everything. He's a little bit older than me, but not by much. And then it was, I think within 3 days, he had died of an aneurysm or a stroke. And I didn't speak up about what I do. I didn't tell him what I do and my abilities, and I wish that I had.
Yes.
Because it made me wonder if I could have prevented his death. I've learned.
So Terry's bandwidth is a little choppy at the present moment. Maybe there's just too much energy coming from us and coming through us, and that's challenging the network, but we've still got it. But if you see in the visual a little choppy or a little in and out with the voice, that's what it is, but the content is still here. So the lesson, the moral of that lesson there is always speak up, because it's their choice now as to whether they're going to receive it or not. And maybe somebody in the moment might go, "Oh, I don't believe that," but you've planted the seed enough for them to be able to go and do something. So I think, in a lot of ways, especially in this kind of world, to say something, you're always waiting for someone to pass the judgment or, to cast whatever it is they do on you. But it is part of our roles, isn't it, to speak up? We have to say it. And then the ball is being served, whether you receive it or whether you bounce it back, that is up to you. But in a way, your duty is to tell them because you were given the sight.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's what I've learned. It is my duty. If I get information, it is my duty to share. I'll give you another example. I was at a copy center, like an Office Depot type store. And I had just finished doing some photocopying, and I turned around and there was a man standing over at the counter, I don't know, 10 feet from me. Oh, I got a sudden sharp pain in my chest. And so I went over to him and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Do you have a heart condition?" Because it just hit me, so bad. And he says, "Yes." He said, I had heart surgery. He said, "One day I went to the doctor. He gave me a clean bill of health. And as I was driving away, he had a heart attack. And so he drove himself to the hospital. And so he had a triple bypass, and he has, major surgery. And I could feel it. It just hit me so hard. So I said, well, thank you for letting me know.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's not always the pleasant thing that you're carrying around, is it? The fact that you're healing,
No.
You're feeling other people's things. For me, it's emotion. I feel emotion and sadness and despair. And one of the things I can't do is walk barefoot on this earth. because the emotion and the pain of the earth is just way too strong. And I have to be very careful in what environment I'm in because I can pick it up. And I know how sometimes it can be rather despairing. What do you do to help yourself kind of get back into your own groove?
Well, I don't associate with a lot of people, I have to say, because of that.
Yes.
Because I'm so,
We do become
I
choosy.
can pick up everything that's
Yes.
going on in their lives. So I'm very careful who I'm around. And so I work and I study a lot. And, right now I'm studying neurosciences through Quantum University, and I'm always studying something medical or psychological or, something to help other people with, especially with trauma recovery.
Yes.
And family dynamics and those kinds of psychological things that people can have issues with. So I'm not really in the world too much.
Yes, I know. I understand that. I've only just actually, when I moved to Victoria, have immersed into bringing more people into my life. But I have found, this energy is conducive to me, and the people that are coming into my life are matching the energy, and it's wonderful. And I really am grateful for that, because I was becoming rather isolated, and I need to get out there and find my vibrational people. I do online, as you do, but physically, and it's important. But I think what people actually have to understand is that we are sensitives. I actually have a physical sensitive disease that heightens my body even more, and I know it's because of my heightened sensitivity in the work that I do. And I don't think people realize that sometimes, is that when you've been around things like this, it's how, I don't know about for you, but for me, that your body and everything can be screaming until you kind of download it and release it. And it's very hard again for the human side.
I agree, and I've also been, oh, is it ever? I was also diagnosed with a sensitivity syndrome. And there's a whole
we're losing you. Can you repeat that, please, love? We lost you there a bit.
Okay, it's a sensitivity syndrome that I've been diagnosed with by a specialist at the Vancouver Women's Hospital. And there's an array of sensitivities that I have that make it very difficult for my body, my joints, my bones, my emotions, everything. And so, I'm learning to live with it and to deal with it, and getting training around it, how to use it and how to work with it.
The doctor's not called Dr. Arsenault, is it?
Yes.
Okay, right. We've both got fibromyalgia. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I actually interviewed him, and I highly recommend anybody who has this or heightened sensitivity, because out of the 31 points, I've got 29. And basically, as he describes it, it's a hypersensitivity disease where everything is heightened. Your touch, your feeling, your emotions, your body. What is an ache and pain to one person is nothing to us, most certainly, where's the oil for the Tin Man? And the draining, the interesting thing about that disease even more, which I'm sure you find, is the best analogy I can do is when you take a phone, after a while, the battery on the phone doesn't charge like it used to. It says 100%, but really it's only kind of giving you a 50 or 60 or 70% production. That's our batteries. Our batteries take longer to recharge, and they don't hold the charge long enough. And I don't think people actually understand, the people that are in our special cosmic world and the work that we do, of how draining and how tiring it is. So, if you are going to book Terry or book anyone else that is a medium or has these abilities, please understand this actually is quite draining on their body, and to respect and value the time that they're giving you, because it's really a gift that is being given through the body to deliver to you on a human level, coming from that cosmic, and that cosmic energy is exponential. And we can only take so much of it going through our bodies at a time.
It's very true. That's so beautifully, eloquently spoken.
I learned a lot from Dr. Arsenault, and it helped me kind of understand what I had, because I was, what was the hell wrong with me? But I also, from the cosmic level, understand why I have it. Because sometimes it is to slow our energy down so we're not too overpowering for other people. Although, really? Don't you? Really?
Yeah.
But so many people I talk to that are in this kind of either healing, emotional, or really delved into the cosmic world have this problem, whether it's fibromyalgia or whether it's hypersensitivity, whether it's energy draining or being choosy of the people around them. And they've got to understand of the amount that comes through us. And that how we do, we're not being rude, we're not being nasty, we're not being snobbish. We have to be particular of who's around us that matches that energy, because a bad energy can throw us completely right off.
Yes,
So
that's so true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's an education for anybody booking you.
Yeah, I like to work with skeptics actually, because I remember going through my training and how skeptical I was. The teacher was saying, "Oh, you're so good at this.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, right. I still don't know what I'm doing."
Right. And are we meant to? I think we're only meant to know what we're doing enough to deliver. It's again, it goes into trust. We're channelers. We're simply open up those beautiful channels, and whatever needs to come through is whatever we're meant to see or do is what we're here to do and see. And we don't really have a choice of that, do we? I mean, we have a choice if you're taking a client, but as you said, you're in a shopping place or whatever, and you sound, feel someone's pain. There is no choice in that. You're just picking up that frequency. I do that a lot with people who are crossing over. And I have all my life, is when they're stuck in between, I'm there to open up that door for them. Or I get messages from the people who've crossed over for their families. And I don't choose who comes to me. I'm not one of those. It's just who comes to me has that message, because we're riding on the same frequency. Right? And so, they can't get down to their loved ones, especially if they're in despair. So we're there to partake and give that message, and how it's received. Sometimes it's not going to be accepted in the moment, but later it comes back to them as a warm blanket. So this is a challenging job that we've been given, but at the same time, to see the results, when you are helping somebody physically, emotionally get better, get back into life, get back into finding their own meaningful purpose, being able to shine bright, that is payment enough. No, folks, you still got to pay her. But I mean, that's the cosmic payment, right?
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, it's a gift, and I'm fully, very highly trained in it too. So I've learned through lots of trial and error and lots of training how to help people where they're at with the information that comes through for them at that time. And it feels like holy work. It feels so important, and it's so rarefied, this information. Wow. I'm always impressed by what comes through for people and how accurate it is, and it's an honor to do this kind of work.
Yeah. Yes, it's soul and heartwarming, and it lifts our spirit and it calms our mind, because when we step into the human mind, and it's always a yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, when we're in this soul mind, it just is. It just is, and it's beautiful. And even if you're working with someone whose journey is to cross over, but you can make that crossing over more peaceful, or the people around them more accepting of it, it's still beautiful, because we've got to understand, again, we've signed that contract to come here, and some people's lights are only to shine bright for a short while, and some people longer. This whole thing about human beings need to suffer. No, we don't. Yeah. I mean, one of the things we need to do is learn not to suffer, right? That is the art. Learn not to suffer, because you're not meant to.
Yeah. And when you come out of that suffer mindset, or that victim mindset, or whatever that is, and apply this self-love,
yes,
to overcome those, entrained teachings, I guess. Yeah. And you really are free.
Yes. And if you can get to that point where you can travel up dimensionally, astrally traveling, you get the answers you seek, even to a question you don't need to ask, because there is that sense of such beautiful divine peace, that you understand, that is your fortitude to kind of come back here and do the work that you need to do. So, I find that more and more people are stepping into that beautiful conscious awakening, soul awakening. And like what you're doing now has been so much more acceptable than it would have been a few years ago. And I think that they're opening up the channels for us even more with the surge of energy that's coming through the planet, that this kind of work, as you said, will become the norm.
Oh, absolutely. The old paradigms are shifting.
Yeah.
And science is changing. Medicine is changing.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And the understanding of our multidimensional self is changing.
Yeah.
And they talk about disclosure, and I'm part of the disclosure. This whole awakening is part of the disclosure of coming into our multidimensional lives.
Yeah.
We don't just have a brain. We have this consciousness, and I've been trained to send my consciousness anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not localized to the organ called the brain.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that people may be challenged with is that paradigm of thinking, and changing those concepts that, yes, we can see multidimensionally and experience and send our consciousness anywhere and gather accurate information. And I use my body as like an antenna.
Yeah.
And that's how I divine some of this spiritual information as it comes through, especially from the departed souls. They give specific information, as you know. And I've been able to save lives from that realm too, when they're warning about impending suicides of a family member. So those are very, very interesting readings.
Yes. Why is it that we accept that prayer can heal? Now, when we pray with good intent, we are stepping up into a higher vibration of healing or releasing or whatever we're praying for. It's energy surging. Yet we can accept prayer, but we can't accept the fact that we could wish somebody love and gratitude on Facebook or through the whatever way we do it. We can just send out wonderful thoughts to someone, and we believe that's not going to work. That's not going to hit them. Yes, it does.
It does.
At the same time, so do negative ones.
Yes.
So we have got to own what we send out and what our thoughts are towards other people, because they're going to feel it.
And there is this thing called karma.
And,
part of my training in controlled remote viewing was remote influencing. And so we did an experiment with that, where someone went out of the room, and I think there were 8 or 9 or 10 of us or whatever in the room. And so I said, okay, let's pretend we're putting this person's hands in a bucket of ice. And so we all envisioned that, and those are the thoughts we sent. And then we asked the person to come back in and ask them how they felt. And they said, oh, my hands are freezing. So, you can use that for good and towards healing, because it's just like changing the
frequency.
Like water, changing water. You could do that too. And so these are energy surges that we send out. And it is through time, through space, from one person to another.
Yes. So, it's the same thing as we have enough hate in the world. We have enough dis-ease in the world. We have enough, revenge and all of that. And the amount of people that carry shoot on their shoulders from their past, it's really time. Just like we need to do house cleaning now and again, good old spring clean. We need to do that of our consciousness, don't we? And let go of what's not serving us. Let go of all that revenge or hate or blame or shame that we're carrying, because it's very heavy on us and it's going to take its toll. And if we don't let it go, then it's going everywhere we're going. And it's this enormous weight that you're carrying with you all the time. And so how can you move forward? How can you spread your wings with that kind of weight?
Mm-hmm. And I sometimes with some people talk about, sometimes we have a grudge against somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine this misshapen energy of this thing called grudge that we have against somebody. And that's between you and that person.
Yeah.
And it grows in shape and intensity and volume, the sheer energy of it. And we can dissipate that as well, because that's preventing love, that's preventing understanding and compassion and healing.
Yeah.
So if we can dissipate that and drop it and let it go, and that's why I think more people like us should be involved in things like, well, I was involved in politics, but now I'm not.
Way too much energy being spent there. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like to
right
see
now.
all this war. I don't like to see the war and all the hate and violence and that, because there is a better way.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that, let's take Voldemort over the border, Trumpism, and we look at everything that means, because everywhere in the world that has a remote consciousness knows that this man stands for everything wrong. And every single law they're passing, every single thing they're doing is against humanity. Everything. It's ego, it's greed, it's power. And it is the true image of what mankind has become. But it's also an invitation for us to rise up and be more. Stop giving your power away. Become empowered yourself. Step into your own self-love, your own beautiful high vibration. Become part of the solution by rising up into a frequency that is more friendly to the planet, to each other, and to the creative forces that will solve our problems. So when we look at the negative and people say, well, how could that happen? We allowed it to happen. We invited it to happen. That scum had to come to the top. But now we've been invited all to clean it up. And we're not going to get rid of the scum. That's going to have to dissipate on its own. But it will when it's facing the power of love, the power of care, the power of kindness, the power of creative love, because that's really the energy that we need right now, isn't it?
And those that are in control and want the power and the greed and the ego, they're coming from those foundations in themselves.
Yes.
They are threatened by people that are self-empowered and have these abilities, because they don't know how to control us.
No, there ain't no control.
So our movement of this evolution of humanity, I think the next phase is called Homo noeticus, where people are Homo noeticus.
What is that?
It's the next stage of human evolution. That's what I've heard about.
Okay, I haven't heard of that word, but I love it. It's a good word.
Yeah, and we are evolving. Our consciousness is evolving. And we're coming out of those dark, almost like the dark ages, into these more enlightened awarenesses and abilities. So it's, I guess we need more people like that.
We need to turn the volume up on everybody. The invite, and I don't know about you, but as an intuitive myself, I've been given and I've been passing it on to everyone that around late spring, somewhere maybe in May, the volume is going to go up. There's going to be a surge of energy that's going to come through. So anybody that's in the process of rebranding, redeveloping, or ready to ignite something or do a big change that's going to improve their lives, this is the time right now to be ready for it, ready to put your foot to the pedal, because there's going to be a surge of energy that's going to propel us all forward if we choose to be and if we've decided to be ready for it. Do you feel it?
Be like a movement, like a what is the word? Transformation, I guess, of human consciousness, isn't it?
Yes.
And the more people that get on this movement, the faster you're going to see tremendous change.
Yes. Yes. I'm at the third chapter of my life, as they call it. I'm so glad that I'm still alive to see this and to be a part of this. This has been my work for thousands of years. From when I first came here. I came here always as that soul igniter, to ignite whatever human form to the cosmic energy. And, you know, I know that I've had some very interesting lifetimes, the last 50 of persecution. And this lifetime was for me to step back into that empowerment, to step back into that beautiful gift without, you know, the persecution. And it's so wonderful after all this time to start seeing the flame being lit, the souls waking up, the hearts being ignited, the spirits flying, and the minds just simply understanding what they need to know without all the complex. We have a lot of knowledge. What we need is the wisdom to understand what the knowledge means and how to use it.
Very well put.
It's a good time. Despite, you know, what it's cost us, it's still a good time to be doing what we're doing, isn't it?
I agree. It is, you know, when I came out about what I do, it
Yes.
was really, really difficult. I felt like I was coming out as if I was gay.
Yes. They're coming to take her away, haha. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, the more training and the more readings that I do, I've just so realized that this is the role that I came to play. And this is how I help people. And it's not just the one person I'm helping everybody that comes in contact with them.
Right. Ripple
And
effect.
it goes backward and forward in
Yes.
time and through generations. So
Yes.
this is big healing,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, for somebody who's now inspired to reach out to you, how do you do it? How do they reach out to you? What do they expect?
Well, they can contact me on my website. It's www.terryanderson, TerryAndersen.com. And there's a variety of different kinds of services and different times. And so they can book a reading online at a time and day that suits their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so I always start every reading with a medical intuitive body scan just to make sure that they're all right. Sometimes that's all they want is a medical intuitive reading.
Right.
But I can do mediumship readings, controlled remote viewing for business, mining.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting, that kind of work.
Yeah.
Corporate work. I've also studied under psychic detectives for that kind of training, so I can help with lost or missing or murdered people. I do suicide readings for people that they have left behind here, and so I can connect that way too. Pretty much any kind of information that people want if they're really struggling and they want some clarity in some part of their life.
Yes. Yes. And you know, that's all you're doing is opening up the channels and allowing the information to come through, you know, so you are that conduit, you know, of knowledge. And it's if we could get out of this limited thinking of, you know, mind and body and that's all there is, if we could let that go and understand that the vessel is purely the vessel that encompasses all this beautiful divine energy, you know, with our heart, soul, spirit. And we will then actually then understand there's so much more to us, and there's so much more that we can do, and there's so much more still to be done. And if we open up to that, that's really when we, you know, really discover how awesome we can be. Because I don't think we've given ourselves the awesome permission, do you?
Well, I agree, because I remember showing somebody my work, you know, when I was being trained in controlled remote viewing for world operations, and they literally backed up from me in absolute fear.
Yes.
Oh my God, how do you know what you're capable of? They said.
Right.
I said, well, I don't, but you got to have an open mind. You know?
But you know what they're scared of is that you're going to use it for evil, because that's what all the movies tell us, and that's of course what CNN tells us. You know, there was somebody running for presidency that's a vegan, and then all across the bloody news, absolutely gong show. What are we going to do with the cows? Are we going to kill all the cows? You know, all the vegan. I mean, the hysteria was just hilarious. Comedians couldn't do it. You know, they're such idiots. But you know, the thing is, we know that fear sells. We also know it's a form of control.
Yes.
So when you hear something you don't understand, don't step into the fear zone. Step into the inquisitive zone. Really? You can do that? How does it work? Can I do that? What's in me that I can do? So I think that it's up to us, because we're part of the problem and we can be part of the solution. It's up to our choice of what we're going to feed and how we're going to receive.
Wow. You speak so beautifully. That's why you're sitting there and I'm sitting here.
No. It's because I get to interview wonderful people like you making a difference in the world that I can do what I'm doing. And that's the point. This is the gift I stepped into. This is the purpose I stepped into, from coaching, from counseling, from all that other stuff. This is where I was meant to be in this lifetime. And I have got to meet such awesome people like yourselves who embraced her redirect. Even though you lost everything, you didn't get lost in the losses. You opened up to the gains and understood the gift, no matter what it cost you, but what it's giving you now, and the enrichment and the abundance of who you are and what you're giving to others is divine.
It is divine. Yeah, it really is. I do feel such an amazement for my life now, and for every life. Every life is an absolute miracle.
Yes.
And we have been, that part of our understanding has been turned off somehow.
Right.
And I help people turn it back on.
Right. Amen, sister.
Each moment is such a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is beautiful. It's not meant to be suffering. Yes, there's struggling, but the more you open up to who you are, the more you listen to wonderful people like you and accept the guidance for you, you're giving them the tools and the skills and the knowledge of how to navigate their own lives. You're also showing them that when they come across an obstacle, you're there to help them. You're not there to do it for them. You're there to guide them through the process, because we have to be willing to go through the process of life to get to the other side, to understand what we're here for. So we need people like you. We need people who can go in and kind of scientifically x-ray somebody. Well, who is it that did that? The Hulk. X-ray people, see where the issues are, because that's where the knowledge is wisdom. You can see where the issues are. Now they're empowered to go do something about it. Right?
And so I did want to speak to that, because after every reading, I send them a really extensive list of additional resources for ongoing insight and support in all of these areas. And I have learned from my own life's journey that the most difficult things we face produce the best gifts.
Yes.
And going through this recovery, I never dreamed in a million years that I would have to become this strong.
Right. Or you could be this strong, or you could be that courageous, or you could be that gifted. Right? And that's the thing, because we never believe we can be until we are invited to be. And then that self-discovery of who we really are and how strong, how courageous, how gifted we are, the instrument that we've been given and how well we can play it. Wow. We've now really stepped into our true calling, and we're ready for that orchestra.
And your mom's zapping me right now.
What's she saying?
She likes what you're doing. So
she never quite got it when she was alive. She said, "I'm very proud of you, although I'm not quite sure what you're doing, but I'm proud of you." And maybe now she's seeing what I'm doing, and having that loving energy is wonderful. We all want that. And that's another thing, is when anybody dies, I'm always saying, when we keep the memories and the love of who that person is as a flame inside, they never leave you. Yes, you miss the holding, the touching, the speaking to, but now you're channeling a different knowledge to them, a different way of connecting. And if you're willing to open up that channel and connect with them, they never leave you. They're always there. Be open and willing to receive, right?
Absolutely.
And interact.
Absolutely. I've done some readings for like mediumship readings where the people can feel them. Touching them wherever it is that they're showing me they're touching.
Yes.
And so that's been really exciting.
Yeah. I've had a few times where I kind of felt their bodies, like the old Whoopi Goldberg trying to take over. But not so much of that anymore. It's like I've evolved into a different energy now, doing a different thing, which is fine. And it's also fascinating, our own journey, isn't it? It's fascinating of who we used to be, who we are now, what's possible down the road. And I think it's a very, very exciting time. And it is
a very exciting time. And my abilities continue to evolve.
Yes.
And perfect. It's just, it's miraculous.
Yes.
Work.
Yes.
it's really exciting,
and very gratifying, which is really wonderful. So it's www.terryanderson.com, and they'll find everything there, all your programs or everything that you do. You've got a beautiful site. It's very easily navigated and broken down. Yes, I need to change mine. At some point I will. I wear all the hats right now. So when I can take a hat off and have somebody else do it, that's different. But it's about taking that leap. You know, you don't need to understand everything. It's taking that leap, giving a permission to open up that chakra, open up that channel within you, to see something within you you need to know so that you can move forward. So don't be afraid of this, because what are you afraid of? You're afraid of the unknown. When you step into the knowledge, what was there to be afraid of?
It's very empowering to do that.
Yes, it is. So don't deny yourself that empowerment by standing behind fear. And let her see what she sees in your body. I imagine there's so many people, you've seen something that they've then gone investigated that saved their lives.
Yes,
because you saw it.
There was a lady in Holland, and I did a reading for her one day, and I said, oh, you've got some twisted cells in your uterus. You need to see a doctor. She said, no, I feel fine. I said, no, you need to see a doctor. So she did, and she emailed me 3 weeks later and said that they found early stage cancer and they operated immediately.
Right.
So, this happens. I've done readings for a person about their mother, who I don't know where the mother was on the planet, but I said, oh, she's got Hodgkin's.
All right.
And she said, yeah, I want to know about her path with Hodgkin's. So I did a reading around that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, if you can read that, if you can see what's in there, you're empowering the people to go and do something about it. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I mean, if you can do that and you can open up that, oh, surely I can open up my channels. And we've always got to understand the gain isn't about power. The gain is about empowerment for you to step into your own beautiful gift and meaningful purpose to be of service to humanity, planet and cosmos. So it is about the more empowered we are, the more we can serve others. It's not about self-serving.
I agree, absolutely. In fact, that's the mission that I feel I came back with, a very, very strong mission.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm walking in that mission.
Yes. And you talked about the death of who you used to be and the birth of who you are now. And, you're not the only person I've spoken to that. Certainly the person I used to be before I merged my two together, I look at that person and I go, what was I thinking? Well, I wasn't. I was living in society's expectation of what everybody wanted me to be. And I was not living from my cosmic self. There was a constant battle. That person died to a point, but really kind of merged into the empowerment of my cosmos. And if you're willing to take that journey and go through that process and become what you're meant to become without fighting it, you're losing something that you didn't really in the end need to have. And you're gaining something with what you were brought here to do. And the more you open up to that, the more you will actually understand the gift that it was that you were given. So
I couldn't say it any better than that.
Well, this has been wonderful, love. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. What you're doing is unique, is extraordinary, is, as you said, more and more being acceptable and more broadly used. And, we've got to open up our minds. The thing is, it does start with the mind, because the mind has to give permission to the heart and soul to be heard. And if we can step out of our ego mind and say, speak to me, soul, speak to me, spirit, be guided to who I need to see. If you've listened to this show today, it's because you need to speak to Terry. Or maybe you know somebody else that needs to speak to Terry. Or maybe you need to have a wine evening where you can all listen to it together and see who needs to speak to Terry. And you can reach Terry at www.terryanderson.com. And she's there to help you in any way that she can. So thank you so much, Terry.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
And to everyone else, stop being afraid. Step out, a leap of faith. We need you in all your beautiful abundance. We're waiting for you. You're awesome when you allow yourself to be. So until next time, folks, bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.